Well, buenos dias. Welcome to the behind the scenes guide to the first episode of the 50 plus, the Northstar Couloir. So let's open up onX Backcountry. We're going to dive into the map. Before we get into it, I will say that any sort of guide, whether that's a book or an app or this video itself, isn't 100% all the information. There's always missing pieces that you need to fill in for yourself, whether that's research beforehand or observations in the field. So don't 100% trust me for every little detail, but hopefully we go into some information. If you ever want to ski the Northstar, you just want to learn more about this line, just some of the tactics we use out there when making observations for big backcountry lines. Hopefully this helps. So first off, the Northstar Couloir, which I labeled as a classic. It's kind of on the low side of the classic for some reasons we're going to get into, but God, man, considering how long I've been looking at it, felt like it deserved that label. So right here, it's in this general region where this yellow waypoint is. This is called South Central Alaska, Southwestern Alaska, Southeastern Alaska. So you can see my arrow is very big. That's for the purposes of this video. I don't have that bad of eyesight. It's usually small. But so we're outside of Anchorage, the biggest city of Alaska, and we're going to be going into Girdwood, Alaska. That's where this line is based. Let's kind of pull it up and get it into 3D mode and check out the line on the map. So I've got a few different layers on there. I'm going to get rid of actually most of them, specifically private land, government land, and just be in the hybrid map. I tend to use the hybrid map the most. I don't know, I just like seeing the topo on top of the satellite imagery. So Northstar Couloir, it's up right here where this black waypoint is. As you can see from the episode, if you watched it, you can see it all from town. Some of those shots that I shot right here on this bridge. This is Girdwood itself. This is Alyeska Ski Resort. The trailhead is called the Winter Creek Trailhead, and this is where you start out. So there's a little parking area here. Pull up this. This is the parking zone. This is kind of one of the main kind of access points for a lot of the ski touring in the Girdwood Valley, or at least on this side of the mountain. So this actually is a cat track, and it's a groomed area. As you can see, and if you saw in the episode, you'll have snowcats that are going by. These snowcats are owned by CPG, Chugach Powder Guides, and when they're not necessarily heli skiing, they're running cat operations out in the zone. So please share the road with them, get out of the way. It's pretty nice that it's always groomed because it's going to be a fast travel both out and up. This whole first mile or so is pretty flat. You're just barely scooting along. Kind of a long access point. You just start meandering kind of through this valley near the Glacier Creek, and you start to kind of turn uphill and start going up this valley after a couple miles of travel. So I'm going to do one thing right here because I want to introduce you to this zone itself. This is called Sunspot. I'm actually blanking on the name of this right now, but this is a very popular ski touring area in the Girdwood Valley. It's also a very popular cat skiing area. So one of the things that's great about onX, with the elite membership, you can turn on private land and government land filters, and you can see exactly what sort of land you are in. So if you can tell here, this is Chugach Adventure Guides land. So don't go in there. You'll see tracks up there. You'll see the cat skiing operation be guiding through there. That's their space, and they're gracious enough to share this cat track. They technically can close it off, but it's a friendly relationship, so don't go up in here. But these cat tracks do continue on, and they will cat ski up here, and around here is some really good, fun ski touring terrain, especially on storm days. So back up a little bit. I'll actually also say what's really cool about these layers for deciding kind of how we're going to film this and what rules and regulations, I need to know what kind of land we're in. So the filter, so this area in green is Chugach National Forest Service land, and then this area is owned by the state of Alaska. So for looking up the rules and regulations of the state of Alaska, I knew that drones were allowed, so we're able to film with drones. Awesome. If this was like a national park, I knew I would have to get permits. These kinds of, the layer of figuring out what sort of land you're on, I find to be super, super informative and helpful for filming and for a lot of things, especially when it comes to kind of like camping. If you love to car camp or anything like that, knowing what kind of land you're on is really important. But let's back up. There's two main routes that you can take to get up and to the Northstar Couloir. I have this first one labeled in black. This was our first proposed route, what we were going to do with Elise if we winter camped, and then this blue one is what we ended up doing. So this is an actual GPS track. I also want to kind of introduce you to this line using these tools itself. So a lot of the things I like to do, turn on some of these filters, like let's go turn on the avalanche forecast. Unfortunately, it is September when I'm recording this. Avalanche forecasts are not out, so it would be kind of labeled in some sort of way. You could click right here and pull up the avalanche forecast. But Chugach National Forest, they're not issuing avalanche bulletins right now, so it's not on. But turn that off. There's some other information that's good about this line. I said it in the episode itself, but it's probably about 45 degrees angle. Let's turn on the slope angle. You can kind of see we're right in this purple, maybe a little bit of blue, but for the most part, we're going to be in avalanche terrain almost the entire day. The one thing I will say is you tend to be, the travel through it is not a lot of avalanche terrain. If you are going to be coming up this valley, yes, you are. If you're going to be on ridge points the whole way, no, you're not. So slope angle is a really kind of interesting, nice filter to play with to understand kind of what sort of steepness of terrain you're getting into. But slope aspect is the one I probably end up using the most. This ends up being about a southwest facing couloir. And what does that mean? Well, it means we're going to get sun in the afternoon, and it most likely means I want to be kind of early on it and be up there and before the sun's getting out in the afternoon. So you can kind of see here this legend to the right. We've got north-facing terrain, that's this way, and we've got sort of these this orange and yellowy kind of southwest style aspect. So that's going to factor into my decisions mainly on timing. So let's go turn off this layer and just kind of go back. I'm just going to go to actually we'll go one last thing, the elevation. So looking right here where this is at, it's about 4,400 feet, the summit right there. But let's go back to satellite and go from here. So this first route, this black route, when I built this, I didn't track this. I tracked it as like 10.7 miles and 5,600 feet of elevation gain. So whenever you're kind of building these sort of routes out there, I tend to like know that it's not going to be exactly. It's going to be in the range of 5,600 vert. Could be 6,500, could be 5,000. That's the nature of GPS. GPS is inherently, like by design, not absolutely perfect. The military has the access to the perfect GPS. We as civilians do not. And then when you're building out these routes, the mileage and whatnot, it's not accounting for every kick turn you're doing or anything like that. So 10 and a half miles, that's just a guesstimate. Ended up being like 19 miles when we did it this way. That's accounting for skiing down a longer way and whatnot. But you just kind of get a ballpark figure. So This route, when we wanted to go up there in the first attempt, this is where we ended up camping. Pull up this picture. This was the viewpoint that we had from it. So we were right on the tree line, right on this ridge line. So protected in a certain way because we had some trees. We were on a ridge line, so we're a high point, so we're not necessarily exposed to any avalanche danger. And we had a great view. We originally were thinking of camping up here, but it's cloudy, it's windy, so we're like, well, let's just camp down here. Now, as we were going up this ridgeline, there is a cat track all the way up here, which makes for easy, nice, fast travel. When we got to here, this is where I ended up digging the pit. You can kind of see in this photo, there's Elise. She put me on rope. She put me on rope because I really couldn't tell where I was going. It was so light out, and I couldn't really see the rollover. And so you might as well just be extra safe, get on a rope in those sorts of situations. And then you can almost see sort of the route. We were going to be trying to go up this ridge line, up to the summit of A1, which is right here, and then across this ridge line up to the summit of Northstar. Northstar looks higher than A1. It's not. You actually are going down a little bit. So what I will say is, talking to some people, that this ridge line is pretty technical and pretty exposed. There's like a double cornice in places. I've heard it's very slow going. I wanted to do it because I like walking on ridge lines. Given any chance to ski something top down where I feel like there's avalanche danger, I will try and take it. And I will take exposure over necessarily, traveling in avalanche terrain. And considering that, when we went and dug this pit, I found some really shocking results. It was a good call to be trying to do it on high points, but still the avalanche danger that day was too high to even want to ski it. So this route, I know a couple people have done it. It's not the typical route. And one of the reasons too, beyond that ridgeline and exposure, is you end up on this top and you got to ski a very exposed narrow ridgeline all the way down to here. I kind of like that stuff. I really wanted to do it that way. I thought it would have been pretty fun, but just didn't quite work out, especially when we went to go do it in a day. To do it this long way would have just taken that much extra time, and we didn't want to be out there for that long. So let's back up. Right here is where the fork in the road is to decide whether you're going to do it from the top down from A1 or you're going to climb up the couloir. This cat road is not really plowed anymore. It looks like it's cut. Might get used every once in a while, but here it's generally not in. So this is where you kind of make a fork for your turn and you start heading up into this valley. So you're kind of contouring. And then here's a decision point, probably the most critical decision point you will make. You're in this valley and you got to decide, am I going to go the low way and then climb up the basin below the Northstar Couloir, or am I going to go up the ridge line and try and figure out a way in from there? I don't know why I decided let's try this highway, but we decided to try the highway and it worked out. But different days, different snow years, different avy conditions, different temperatures, all that stuff will factor in. When we were going up this, you probably saw it was really, really frozen terrain, and it made for some like exhausting side hilling because I was like trying to stomp my feet in every single step. But it kind of worked out as we went up this ridge line. So here, critical point. You want to go low and be pretty much guaranteed to get around, or you want to risk it and go up here and then maybe have to still ski back down to here to make it in. So as you can see, this was our out track back to this point, and this was our up track on the right. This up track on the right led us to this point where you saw that kind of shot, made for some beautiful views and a really good decision point. What I will say is you cannot, well, yeah, we're getting wonky. Let's get this rid of that. Probably internet's weirding out. Whoa, we're getting wonky. So this section right here, you can't ski down through it. When we were at this point, right here, we saw, yeah, my internet's fancy and wonky. What we did see was that there was a traverse that looked clean across here. So we decided, all right, let's go up this way. If you get to here and this traverse is not in, then you're going to want to ski back down and come all the way to here. This can get kind of treed and a little funky, but this is the most guaranteed way through. We decided to go up here, worked out. You can see this was the ridge line, and this is kind of where we had to traverse to get into the space and to then climb up the couloir itself. This traverse too, if you're not comfortable with exposure, don't do it because it's really exposed. And it was really rocky and kind of thin, and it was a really big snow year. So I would say this way probably goes less often and is probably not really used that often than just going this low and safer way. Okay, now into the couloir itself. Let's get rid of this. So, see all this weird GPS stuff? That's when you're in tight, narrow basins and you're not getting a proper satellite signal, especially up far north, like in Alaska. And when you're in couloirs, it just kind of bounces off walls and throws off all weird sort of signals. So ignore that. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. Even so much so that, right, in this kind of, it was a weird export, but it said we did 14,000 feet of elevation gain. We did not. It did take 10 hours. It was 19 miles, 19.8 miles in total, but it was about 6,000 vert. Somehow this export got weirded out, and that's what it ended up saying. But in my actual GPS track, the one that was not exported weird into Onyx, had the correct numbers. But let's get into kind of this line itself. You saw we kind of got a little decision point and we made our transition right here. So this couloir itself, what am I thinking about? I talked about it in the episode, but you're going to be in what I think is overhead exposed terrain. So you've got this very south facing slope and this more west facing slope above you. What's going to be able to come down on you? Thinking about that before we're going out there, the timing for the day, the temperatures that we're seeing, the new snow, all that stuff before climbing up a couloir. What we'd seen was that there wasn't much stuff rolling off. It was hitting, the sun was starting to hit in it, and there wasn't that many like what I call gargoyles or pillows or cornices or anything that like really could fall off and come down and hit you. And when we started to climb, we were actually a little bit in the clouds, which just gave us an extra margin for error. But then what I also think is like there's a lot of spines here, and we're going to get slough and whatnot, but we'll probably, this is such steep terrain, we're not going to get like catastrophic slab avalanches. Spines are generally formed in steeper than 45-degree terrain. Not always, but they sometimes and most likely are, especially in Alaska. So we're most likely not going to be getting slab avalanches coming off. And if we were, this spits into a different sort of drainage. So I'm thinking about overhead hazard when I'm in these sort of places, thinking about the timing, looking at it. As you can see here, we're just starting to get sun on it. So, but it was also very cold that day, 16 degrees. So the sun did not even feel that warm, which just gave us good comfort that knowing that climbing up the couloir was a good thing. I would say this couloir in general, it's not a late spring couloir. I'd want to be doing this more in February, March, and early April, in a cold early April. Since it's southwest exposed, that makes for, you know, a couloir that's going to warm up very quickly. So yeah, that's kind of, let's take one last look at it. That's the couloir itself. We climbed straight up here, got to the top. I did want to go all the way up here, but we decided to turn around. So that's the nature of kind of filming too. Everything takes a bit longer. If we weren't filming, I probably would have gone up here, but since we were filming and the goal was just to ski the couloir, that's all we did. As we skied down, the most natural thing to do is take this down to the valley floor. So, of course, the couloir itself, like I said, it's only like 1,200 vert. It's a long ways for a kind of short couloir, but it's a pretty impressive couloir. The views were absolutely incredible, like you saw in the episode. And the snow was pretty surprisingly good, even though it had already gotten in the sun quite a bit and sloughed a little bit, and there was some kind of a little bit of funkiness. It still skied really, really fun. So as we skied down, there's a kind of transition point. I didn't end up putting a photo in there. Whoops. Anyways, the transition point is pretty much go to the end of the trees, go to where it feels right, and then you just start contouring all the way back to this point, which I had talked about earlier. It's kind of like the route selection. So you kind of see we kind of came through these trees, contoured all the way back. Keep contouring, go through this little creek valley, get back to the road, and then once you're right here, it is all downhill from there. The credit scene was pretty much just flashing all this. You leave it in walk mode, your boots, not your skis, and just like party on. And the great thing is, even though it feels like this, there's a long flat through here, and it is kind of long. If it's hard and fast and not sticky, it's a really quick skate. Like from here to here, which is probably like 4.5 miles, you get it done in like 15 minutes. So yeah, that's kind of like the route, the Northstar Couloir. So thanks for tuning into this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I will try to answer them. So cheers.